In the midst of a very investor-safe and risk-averse world for entertainment in general, John K., the creator of Ren and Stimpy, couldn't help but let his depravity slip through into his work, which helped open the door for many other cartoons that were considered edgy or unsafe to produce to start creating their own work for the mainstream. Ren and Stimpy is a very demented, controversial show that was created in the 90s. Had a quality of being just so close to the edge of becoming too much. And as you'll see later, he did get a chance to cross that line. One thing I would say about it is that it feels like the final cry of the traditional cartoonist, with the rejection of use of modern animating applications like Flash. One thing about John K.'s work is that it's extremely expressive. Despite the creator being a horrible person, the show Ren and Stimpy is very much entertaining and extremely impressive in what it got away with. In recognizing that you shouldn't support John K., let's explore his pivotal work, Ren and Stimpy. And I go on a massive tangent in the very end, so I hope you enjoy. Ren and Stimpy, created in the 90s, a very innovative, creative, and impactful show. It inspired generations of animators and cartoons forward, opening the doors for many more edgy shows. It was immensely engaging. The animation was absurdly fluid, which makes sense because the creator demanded his animators never redraw the same frame twice. He definitely was a perfectionist. Here's what a typical episode of Ren and Stimpy looks like. The episode begins with Stimpy observing that his best friend, Ren, is constantly angry, miserable, and stressed. In a moment of pure, albeit misguided, compassion, Stimpy decides that he must invent something that will force Ren to be happy. He retreats to his laboratory, and after a montage of nonsensical scientific work, he emerges with his creation, the Happy Helmet. The absurdity begins with the invention itself. It's a bulky, intimidating piece of headgear with robotic hands, electrodes, and chrome plating. Its function is not to inspire joy, but to physically compel it. In a very expressively raw, animated section that highlights John K.'s expertise in cartooning, Stimpy forces the helmet onto Ren's head, and in this amazingly animated sequence, it shows how the helmet changes Ren's emotional state to be happy, like forcing him to be happy against his will. And it's just a beautifully animated scene. Like, I'm seriously awestruck at how amazing the animation is and the flow of each line, and how it just perfectly accentuates the horror of the scene, because it is like horrifying to watch it play out. I especially like how the background kind of just fades out. It's not important. The setting doesn't matter. It just goes to this like black and blue splatter screen, and it draws your focus into the character. And then going forward, the episode continues from there, pushing Ren, seeing how much he'll take until he finally explodes and takes a hammer and smashes his own skull with it until the helmet falls off. And in a moment of bliss, of pure anger, Ren finally realizes that he's so happy to be angry that he drops it. And the series restarts to the next episode. So that's an example of a typical episode on Ren and Stimpy. Very loose plot, maybe just the beginning of a plot, and hardly a strong conclusion, at least in terms of plot points. The characters don't learn anything, and basically the only thing gained was the experience of the journey. And the show is completely all intentional. Ren and Stimpy is a episodic series, meaning that the plot doesn't carry on between episodes. Mainly, there are some episodes where it does follow or some details are brought through. But at its core, Ren and Stimpy is just a buddy comedy about these two friends. They work tremendously well together, both acting as each other's foil. And it's just a really well animated series. Seriously, I haven't seen a cartoon as expressive except for maybe shows inspired by Ren and Stimpy like SpongeBob. And that's not a coincidence, since Vincent Whaler is one of the main animators and writers/directors of Ren and Stimpy, who then went on to go work for SpongeBob, where he contributed a lot to SpongeBob's style. And that's where you see like those really close up, high definition paintings of like SpongeBob eating the crusty Krabby Patty burger. And it's also a huge innovator in the field. It brought back the opening card, which it's that first opening card with usually it's just the writer or like the lead storyboard artist. And it really sets the mood and the tone for the rest of the episode. One of my favorite card titles from the series is Sven Hoke. It's this opening sequence, but it's shot in live action, which is really absurd, but it shows how the show is like pushing boundaries, and also it's just like really fun. Like, I don't know, it's this weird, like, I don't even know Danish, I suppose. I mean, John K actually went to Europe to study, or I think it was in his childhood, he actually went to Germany to like, I think his family was there, and I think he just kind of fell in love with that kind of culture, the Danish culture especially. So this introduction to the show is just a really fun, like, title card sequence. It's this jolly Danish guy in like a kilt playing the freaking accordion. What's not to love about it? It's pretty fun. And I was just reminded that Danish people don't wear kilts, and I just got hit by the Mandela effect and rewatched the freaking intro, and he's not wearing a kilt. Thank you, Nelson Mandela. And the music of this show is surprisingly classical. It takes part of the traditional orchestral music of Looney Tunes and shows before it, and I think it really heightens the surreal quality because it does harken back to Looney Tunes, this orchestral, very high quality music, but then the characters are just like doing the craziest things that you can imagine, and it just provides a lot of really good contrast. Reading John K's blog, it's very noticeable that he knows a lot about the fundamentals of drawing. He breaks down very elegantly character design, color theory, and all the other fundamentals of art. Also, you can tell that he's very, very critical of cartoons of today, saying that they're very much lifeless and just no value. He comes off as this very pretentious person, and I'm okay with potentially disrespecting him because he is a PDF file. Sadly, he was only exposed in 2018 when it should have been earlier, when he was accused of grooming underage girls, which then he did admit to. His lawyer is quoted in saying that he had a relationship, but that's not what that is. That's grooming. A former animator who was employed at his production company, Spumco. She was 16 and he was 39 at the time. Absolutely disgusting. So the power dynamics there are really weird. Another former animator who claims she didn't have a physical relationship with John, but says that she started communicating with him in a suggestive manner when she was underage. Not good, John. You dirty perv. So like I said, sadly, he wasn't exposed for this during his fame, but years after, he never got prosecuted for any of this, even though he seems pretty notorious. The reason he got fired was because he was a perfectionist who constantly missed deadlines and went over budget. On the 25th of September 1992, during the second season of his show, John K. was fired. Good riddance. So I urge you to watch this show, but keep in mind that this guy is a pervert, and please pirate it. Do not support this man. So now I'm going to give the narrative on why Ren and Stimpy was so successful in like the artistic, pretentious way. So if I do sound a little pretentious, it's because I am. So the era of its time was an era of hyper-conservatism within cartoons. The cartoons of the 1980s were primarily produced to sell toys and were directly marketed only at children. So there was no dual audience. It was only directed at children, and adults really, it just wasn't for them. And as a quick aside, that is totally what we are in right now, except for it has that dual audience like Marvel movies, these superhero high budget movies. They have an adult audience as well, so it's not directly comparable, but it is very similar to how the media right now, and movies especially, are just recycling old things that's already happened, and it's very conservative. Like, investors won't support a project that is brand new. They'd rather support something that already has a fan base. Okay, back to it. So Ren and Stimpy was really a disruptive innovation in a way that is just very much so subversive and dark / like grotesque humor, pushing the boundaries on edginess to capture that dual audience of parents and kids. A huge part of the show that led to its success was its visual style. It was a deliberate throwback to the golden age of American animation from the 1940s, particularly the work of Tex Avery and Bob Clampett, who are industry stars of cartooning, who both worked at Warner Bros. The show has a signature gross-out humor with a loving attention to bodily fluids and functions, and it was extremely shocking and hilarious departure from the sanitized world of children's programming. And with hindsight being 2020, people look back on Ren and Stimpy for ushering a new era of creator-driven animation series. This means that switching from like the older method of executive, like marketing executives being in control of the series to having artists and writers actually having way more hands-on of their creation. And people credit Ren and Stimpy for allowing shows like Beavis and Butthead, Dexter's Laboratory, the Powerpuff Girls, and most notably SpongeBob SquarePants to exist and thrive. And they were all heavily influenced by Ren and Stimpy, with its character-driven storytelling and less emphasis on traditional plot points, and definitely not targeted exclusively towards kids. Like, adults can watch it too. Now, that's like the critic analysis from all my research, but I personally believe that it wasn't just Ren and Stimpy. Like, in the same era, in the same breath, there were shows like Simpsons that came out before Ren and Stimpy. And I think just in that time, it was just a rise of adult animation. Not to say that Ren and Stimpy didn't have a huge impact on it, because it did. Like, you can see that with its long-lasting gimmicks or tropes or whatever you want to call it, but like the close-up, very detailed paintings of SpongeBob, they're just so funny. And like the intro title card, which I mentioned earlier, to even in more modern times with shows like Rick and Morty and Smiling Friends, all these, I think they had a pretty strong inspiration from shows like Ren and Stimpy, if not Ren and Stimpy itself. Because when you watch it, Ren and Stimpy feels very modern with its humor. It's very ironic, and it doesn't feel like a show that came out in the 90s, which is very impressive. So after the show got canceled, John K. actually went back to Adult Swim and tried to get a reboot, and he did get a production going, but it only lasted 2 or 3 episodes because it's the same problems that happened before with his production schedule. He's just not meeting deadlines. But funnily enough, something else happened when he was given unlimited control over his project, and the show sucks. Go watch it now. It's terrible. It's just like extremely grotesque for grotesque's sake, and it's unfunny, and it's just not good. There's not a lot there. And it kind of exposes that like limitations are good for artists when they are super edgy and want to be different. And in a way, he's suffering from his own success because he can't be this cultural magnate when he already pushed the boundaries and already broke through that wall years prior. And now he's just trying to do the same thing, but even edgier and even worse. That's not really how it works. So regardless, it just flopped. The show absolutely failed, and it was canceled after 3 episodes. And John K. never worked on anything substantially again, or at least nothing he personally produced in the same vein as Ren and Stimpy. And that's kind of where the story ends today. He didn't face any consequences for being a PDF file, like I've said. And it seems like from his blog, he's just kind of living his day-to-day thing and posting a lot about Ren and Stimpy and fundamentals of drawing. His blog is actually a pretty good resource for some knowledge on drawing, but just get it somewhere else. He's not talking about anything crazy or groundbreaking over there. Okay, while I was researching for this video, I went onto John K's blog, which I mentioned earlier, but it was just like a crazy rabbit hole that I fell into. To illustrate my point, I will be doing a live reading of Why Artists Shouldn't Do Yoga by Uncle Eddie. Uncle Eddie is a person I found while exploring this rabbit hole, going through John K's blog, and he's just tagged on the side there, very unassuming. But this guy has got a lot to say, so strap in. For the life of me, I can't understand why an artist would practice yoga. Actually, I can't understand why anyone at all would practice it. It's an awful lot of work, and what do you get for it? You get to be rubbery. Since when was being rubbery so special? What really needs to explain to me is why artists would be interested in it. Am I the only one who noticed that yoga poses are ugly? Why would an artist try to cultivate ugliness? We're the people who are supposed to make the world more beautiful. Honestly, I think yoga goes out of its way to be ugly. Ugly poses occur far too frequently to be caused by random chance. Even traditional Indian art ignores yoga. The dancing Shiva is beautiful by any standard, and the Kama Sutra is informed by something resembling yoga, but not dominated by it. I know something about Indian history, but I'll hazard a guess that yoga came to India fairly recently, maybe only a few centuries ago. India must have had a charismatic Richard Simmons type who convinced everyone to dispose of tradition and adopt ugliness instead. Who was this malevolent person? Why would he do such a thing? Why do people listen to him? Yoga not only violates traditional Western ideas of beauty, and it flies in the face of international consensus. Everywhere you go outside of India, the people have developed some kind of aesthetic fitness training. Whether it's hula or karate or tai chi or hip hop, the moves are all intended to be beautiful. Only yoga defies the aesthetic standard. Okay, that's my take on it. I'm gonna get a sandwich. Quite insightful stuff, and I'm sure there's more in these random blog posts that are just really funny, but man, are they hard to navigate. It's just post and post after nothing, and then you get a gem like this. I'll be looking at these, and in the future, if I find anything, I'll make sure to share it. If you made it this far, I know you liked this video. Please like and subscribe. Comment, that helps the algorithm. And see you fish fiddlers later.